When I tell you this is the scariest story I've ever read, I'm not joking. This story had me not sleeping and streaming a 24/7 stream of Bluey. That's how scared I was. So there's a guy and he's just got into a relationship with a girl that he is completely infatuated with. He says he's had relationships in the past, but there's something about this girl that he's drawn to. The moment he saw her, he fell in love with her. Couple of weeks in, he'd already planned that he was going to marry her. He wanted to be with her all the time, thought about her 24/7, wanted to call her 24/7. He was just obsessed. He said he'd never been a hopeless romantic before with past relationships, but with her, he just wanted her. Just everything about her, he was drawn in. He'd already planned out his proposal, their first date. They went on like a 3-hour hike. They had a cheeky kiss at the top of like the peak, and he knew that's where he was going to propose to her, exactly a year to the day. He'd already picked out the ring. He was in love with her. However, there was one thing that he thought was drifting them apart. That was, he needed to close the gap. And that was, she never wanted to stay the night, either at her house or his house. It could be 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. As soon as one of them started drifting off, she'd be like, look, you've got to go, or she'd go. And it happened too many times, and he thought there's something that she's hiding from me. After a few months, he finally plucked up the courage to ask her. So while she was at his house, he said, is there a reason why you don't like falling asleep around me? Like, what's the issue? It takes him a bit of time to get the truth out of her, but eventually she admits that she's just started sleep talking and she's a bit embarrassed by it. When he hears sleep talking, he's like, is that it? Like, my siblings used to sleep talk. I used to be in scouts. People used to sleep talk. Like, I'm used to it. She quickly shuts him down and she's like, no, you don't understand. The stuff that I say is horrific. I say really nasty, vile things, and I don't want you to hear it. And this is when he admits to her that he's in love with her and there is nothing that she can say or do that would ever make him change his feelings. And this reassures her, and eventually he just says, why don't you stay the night tonight? And if it gets bad, we can talk about it in the morning. It takes like a full bottle of wine to agree, but she's like, look, okay. And by the time it gets to bedtime, she says, look, if it does get bad, please do just go to the couch. She says to him, don't respond to me, and please don't wake me up, because when people have woken me up in the past, I get really angry and they say it's not me. And he's like, look, got it, noted. I won't reply to you. I won't wake you up. He goes, but you won't even bother me. Trust me, like, don't worry about it. So they both fall asleep, and after a few hours, he gets woken up and he has a feeling that someone's watching him. But then very quickly he remembers, my girlfriend's here, and he gets that warm, fuzzy feeling because he's thinking about a girl that he's madly in love with, and he goes to put his arm over her shoulder, and she's not in bed. Her side of the bed is empty. So he quickly opens his eyes, and that's when he sees her looking down on him. And she says in a voice that he describes as being like really raspy and really aged. She says, I'll chew the skin off your bones. I'm sorry, what? You'll do what now? I'd be running out of that room so quickly. But my guy just falls asleep. He goes back to sleep and it's like, she just says some weird stuff. But, you know, she's obviously having a weird dream. He drifts back off to sleep and he wakes up again, doesn't know how long's passed. And he says he can feel really hot breath on him, and this breath is rancid. It's like rotten eggs and dead animals, and it's breathing quite quickly in front of his face. And he says it feels like a dog is panting in front of him. And he knows that when he opens his eyes, all he's going to see is his girlfriend. Eventually, something comes over him, and he opens his eyes, and he sees his girlfriend pretty much nose pressed to nose. You better go sleep in the lounge because you'll be dead by morning. I'd be leaving that apartment so fast. But, you know, my guy doesn't even question it. He's like, enough said. He creeps out of bed, he goes to the lounge, and as he's leaving the room, he starts hearing her laugh. Again, it's not her voice. He says it's aged, it's raspy, and he's shit scared. He goes to the couch, and that's where he can hear her saying his name. His name's Stephen. She's going, Stephen, come back. Stephen, I didn't mean to scare you. I told you it was bad, Stephen. But then in between her sentences, she would do this horrible aged laugh. Stephen is basically rocking on this couch because he's thinking, why am I infatuated with this girl that has just said that she's going to kill me? And he's noticing, like, the more that he's replaying this voice in his head that isn't his girlfriend's, the less he's kind of like waking up, and he's like, why am I so in love with her? And he's trying to remember what's different about this girl than his other girlfriends, and he's like, but I don't know what's going on, she's just scaring me, and he's trying to snap himself out of it. And she's still trying to entice him back. She's saying, come back to the bedroom, with this awful cackly laugh in between. And then she's saying, why don't I come to you instead? Now, Stephen said even if he would have heard one footstep, he would have ran out of that apartment so quick, but luckily she never left. Instead, she starts saying, you're going to walk me up that hill, aren't you, Stephen? You're going to walk me up that hill and you're going to propose to me in exactly a year. I know you're going to do it, and I know you've already picked out the ring. In this weird, raspy voice. That's when he kind of realises that this thing that's speaking out of his girlfriend isn't his girlfriend, because how would she know that he's already planned the proposal? Exactly a year to the day as well. And then he starts to think, has she been possessed? Is something in her? And is he drawn to what's in her rather than his girlfriend? Because he says the way that he feels towards her is infatuation like he's never felt before. He spends the night on the sofa. The next morning, his girlfriend says, how was it? And he says, it was fine. He doesn't know how to tell his girlfriend. What would you do? Has anything like that ever happened to you? What do you think it is? Because that is terrifying. Just the thought of somebody standing over you, I'm going to chew the skin off your bones. I'm sorry, what? You're going to leave. You're going to leave right now where I am.
This is the creepiest story I've got for Spooky Scary Storytime in a while. It's called The Man at the Mailbox, and it's a creepy roommate story time, and you know I love those. So this came from someone named Christine, and she says that last year she was looking for a new place to live in Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans. She works in New Orleans, but needed to be somewhat close for work, but didn't really care necessarily if she was like in the city. So she finds this listing on Marketplace. She checks out the girl's profile who posted it, and the girl seemed normal enough, right? Like she's around her age, like late 20s, early 30s. And so Christine messages her. She's like, can I, come check out the house? And the girl says, yeah, let's, why don't you come this Saturday? And so Christine goes, and she said the house was cute. It was on a long parish road. There were other houses on the street. Like, they had neighbors, but there were no sidewalks in the neighborhood. It was obviously an older neighborhood with a lot of houses that hadn't been updated, but it was pretty much just what Christine was looking for. And so she's asking her, like, what are you looking for in a roommate? And this girl basically tells her, I'm not home a lot. I work at a bar. I work a lot of overnights, and I stay with my boyfriend a lot. So if you wouldn't mind helping me just like feed my cats some mornings when I'm not here, as long as you're clean and you're responsible, like, I don't really care. I'm not really here. Christine asks about the rent because she's like, I noticed that it's significantly cheaper than a lot of other places in the area. And the girl's like, well, I want to be upfront honest with you. Like, I actually own the house. I inherited it. It's like a family property. But I'm working a lot to save money because me and my boyfriend want to buy a nicer place. I listed it for a little bit cheaper because I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone, because I don't have a mortgage on this house, but I also am saving money. So that's why the price is what it is. And Christine's like, that sounds perfect. And she said the house was cute. It was decorated nicely, kind of sparse, had not been updated, but she didn't really care. Like, she just really needed a place to lay her head at night and to be able to pay her rent on time. So she moves in, and she doesn't really see her new roommate. We'll call Lauren for this story. She doesn't really see Lauren a lot for the first few days that she's living there, but Lauren did tell her that she works all the time. She's always working doubles. So Christine's mostly alone in this house, unpacking and just settling in. Lauren was polite enough, but didn't really go out of her way to make Christine feel like they were going to be friends. And Christine was honestly fine with that. But on the fourth night she's living there, she's unpacking some stuff in her bedroom. It's like 9 p.m. and she realizes that she had a package come as part of like her new bedroom set. And so she goes out to the porch to get it, and she notices that there's a man standing in the street, like kind of on the shoulder of the road, not exactly in the road, but not on their lawn either. And he's standing near the mailbox. He looks older. She said if she had to guess, he'd probably be in his 70s. He was stood with a cane, but other than that, his hands were just completely at his sides, and he was just staring at the house. Obviously, this is unsettling to Christine, so she runs back in the house with her package, and she immediately texts Lauren. And she's like, there's a man staring at the house. And Lauren doesn't answer. She knows she's at work, so she's like, okay. So she calls her mom, and she tells her mom about the man. And the mom's like, well, is he doing anything? And so Christine peeks out the window, and he's still just standing there staring at the house. And she's like, no, he's just standing there. And her mom's like, well, is he on your property? And Christine's like, no, he's standing in the road. And her mom's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, is it a good neighborhood? Like, did you check out the area? She's like, you can't really call the police for a man that's just standing, not even on your property. She's like, just keep an eye on him. If he comes closer to your door, obviously call the police, call me, whatever. So Christine's like unpacking this box in her room, and then she goes back to the window. It's like 10 or 15 minutes later, and she notices the man's gone. So she feels better. And she doesn't hear from Lauren again that night, but she wakes up in the morning, and Lauren's not home, but she has a text from her, and she says, oh, don't worry about it. That's just Carl. He's harmless. Christine's thinking to herself, like, who is Carl? So she texts her back, and she goes, well, does he live around here or something? Like, what's his deal? And Lauren, after a little while, texts her back, and she says, sorry, I slept at my boyfriend's last night. He just has dementia or something, but if you see him again, don't look him in the eye because it upsets him. So Christine just texts her back and she says, okay, I won't look him in the eye. And she's like, thinks that's weird, but she's like, why wouldn't she have mentioned it to me? But also, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's just this poor old man, right? So she goes about her day, doesn't really think about the situation again. That night she goes out, meets some friends, comes back around 9 p.m. She's pulling into the long gravel driveway, which she said kind of wraps around the back of the house. And as she's pulling in, she notices the man's back and he's standing at the mailbox again, staring at the house. Doesn't even look at her as she pulls past him in the driveway. Again, he's just kind of standing on this little gravel shoulder of the road. But it really creeped her out that he was out there again. So she decides she's going to go in the back door so he doesn't see her get out of her car. Like, she doesn't want to take any chances. So she goes in, she looks out the front window. She sees he's still standing out there the same way, hands at his sides with his little cane, staring at the house. So she's like, this is so weird. So she texts Lauren again and she's like, Carl is back. He's staring at the house again. Like, how often does he do this? And a few minutes later, Lauren texts her back. She's like, sorry, I'm at work. He does this every night. He shows up at 9:03 and he leaves at 9:13. That gave Christine a bad feeling because she was like, I would be okay if it was just this random man who walked around the neighborhood. I guess sometimes and people looked out for him, but the fact that he comes to the house and stares at the house every night at 9:03 for 10 minutes and then leaves is weird. So she decides that the next time she sees Lauren, she's going to ask her more about Carl and like who he is and why he stares at the house. So another couple days go by. Their schedules do not line up at all. So they don't really see each other besides in passing. And Christine didn't really want to bother Lauren like in passing about Carl because she really wanted to have a conversation about it. So she waits for a few more nights. And every night she's looking if she's home at 9:03 to see if Carl shows up. And he does. Every single night at 9:03, he stares at the house until 9:13. I don't know how long it was before she was actually able to talk to Lauren about this, but we'll say a week just for storytelling's sake. So she finally gets Lauren alone, and it's like 7 p.m. this one night. They're both home on a rare night, and Christine's like, okay, so can we talk about Carl? Like, what is his deal? Because I've noticed like he's out there every single night, like you said, at like 9:03 until 9:13. Like, what's he doing? How do you know who he is? And Lauren's just like, I don't know, he's been coming around since I've been coming here, since it was my grandma's house. He's always come to check on the house, and my grandma just said that he was a watcher and he was just watching the house. She liked to think that he was just making sure the house was taken care of. She thought maybe that he lived here at some point, but the whole neighborhood knows who he is and kind of looks out for him. And Christine's like, well, does he look at anybody else's house? And she's like, no, just ours. Christine's like, I'm sorry, like, that's weird to me. So you mean that every single night that you've lived here, he has been staring at your house for like 10 minutes? And Lauren's like, yeah, like just nonchalant. She's watching TV. She's like having this conversation. And Christine's like, and you don't know where he came from or where he lives or anything? And Lauren's like, no, but I told you, like, he doesn't bother anyone as long as you don't look him in the eye. And Christine's like, what happens if you do look him in the eye? And Lauren's like, I don't know. I never did it because my grandma always told me not to look him in the eye and I just trusted her. And she's getting like noticeably upset as they're having this conversation. So Christine just decides she's going to drop it. She's like, okay, I didn't mean to press. It was just like a little bit weird for me to move in here and then have this man staring at the house every night. But if you're telling me he's harmless, I believe you. Lauren's like, yeah, it's cool. Do you want to watch a movie? Changes the subject. And Christine's like, yeah, sure, let's watch a movie and hang out because they hadn't really had a chance to. So they watch a movie. Everything is normal. And after the movie ends, Christine's like, oh, do you want to like watch another movie or like watch a comedy special or something? And Lauren's like, no, I think I'm going to go to bed. And it's like 8:58 and she notices that she walks to the door, turns off the porch light, goes in her room and locks the door. So at this point, Christine is like, okay, I know a little bit more about Carl. I'm going to like check him out tonight. Like, I'm going to see what he does. So like 9:01, she opens the blinds and she's staring outside because she wants to see where he's coming from. And she notices she can see a little shadow coming up the street at 9:03. And he's walking with like a limp, like he's dragging one of his feet, but she knows he walks with a cane. So she watches him walk up to the house, stand, take position, and stare at the house. Not moving. He barely seems to be blinking. He obviously does not see her staring at him through the window. And the minutes pass and she's watching him and he's not moving. And it's 9:08, 9:09. And finally curiosity gets the best of her. And she's like, I want to see what happens if I look him in the eye. She says she knows she shouldn't have done it, but what would you have done in that situation? So she walks outside. She doesn't even flinch when she opens the door. So she walks out to the point in the sidewalk in front of him where she's making eye contact with her. Waves at him, but he doesn't flinch. And she said it felt like he was staring into the depths of her soul. So after a minute, she's like, okay, this is weird. Like, he's not even moving. He's not even acknowledging me. Nothing's happening. He doesn't seem upset. So she decides she's going to go back in the house. And she goes back to her position in the window and she's still watching him. It's 9:12. It's 9:13. But then he doesn't leave and he stays an additional 4 minutes. It's 9:17 when she sees him turn back toward the direction from which he came and walk back up the street, dragging his foot behind him. She thinks it's weird, but obviously Lauren was right. Like, he's harmless. He didn't do anything. So she goes to sleep, doesn't really think much about it. The next day comes and goes, and around 4 p.m. that day, she gets a text from Lauren. Like, she's out, she's at work, and Lauren texts her, and she says, did you look at Carl last night? And Christine lies to her. She's like, well, I accidentally went outside when he was out there, and I accidentally made eye contact. And Lauren texts her back in all capitals. She said, why would you do that? I told you never look him in the eye. When she gets home from work, Lauren's sitting in the living room and she just looks like she's stressed. And she tells Christine to go look at the mailbox. And so Christine goes out to the mailbox and she notices it's packed full of dirt and feathers. And she comes back in and she's like, what is happening with the mailbox? And Lauren's like, well, who do you think did it? You know, you looked him in the eye and I told you it upsets him. So Christine's like, well, what's with the dirt and feathers? And Lauren's like, I don't know, but now he'll be here at 9:02. Christine's like, I feel like you're not telling me something about this house or like Carl's story. Or like, how do you know his name is Carl if you've never met him? And she goes, that's just what we call it. And she goes, what do you mean it? And she goes, listen, my grandmother, when she left this house to my mom, who didn't want the house, left it with a set of rules. Up, goes to the kitchen, goes in a little junk drawer, comes back with a note card that's in her grandmother's handwriting. And she's like, my grandmother left this to my mom, who left it to me. The card says, before we owned this land, it was a plantation. Before that, it was a swamp. Since our family has owned it, Carl has been coming. Do not look him in the eye. We call him Carl because it makes him smaller. And Christine's like, well, hold on, because you told me that Carl might have lived here before. And she goes, no, that's just what I told you to make you feel better about it because we don't know what it is. She goes, I got this house because my mom didn't want it because she hadn't heard from my grandmother for a few days. So she came over here to check on her and she found her stood petrified at the mailbox. Christine's like, what do you mean petrified? And Lauren's like, she died there standing up. My mom always thought it had to do with Carl, but Carl never bothered me. And I've seen him here since I've been coming here since I was a little girl. I just figured if I could avoid looking at him, everything would be fine. Christine's like, the neighbors didn't notice that your grandmother was dead at her mailbox. Lauren tells her she doesn't feel like the situation is working out and she's asking too many questions and she asks her to find another place to live. She's like, I'll give you another month, another 2 months, however long it takes, but I don't think you should stay here. She's like, this isn't a good fit. And that night, Carl came at 9:02 p.m. Stayed till 9:17. She doesn't know what happened. She moved out. She's like, I know it sounds insane, but I swear it really happened.
Oh my gosh, guys, this one actually made me almost nauseous thinking about how scared I would be in this situation. You might have heard this one before, but I had to share it when I found it. So this woman writes that she is a firm believer that if you acknowledge something, it gets stronger. She said she wants to sort of just put the story out into the world in hopes that it takes the temptation away for her to bring it up to her fiance all the time. Okay. So one evening after work, she comes home and goes to take a shower. She mentions that she hadn't slept well the night before and she was very tired. She had her music playing as loud as it would go so she could hear it over the rushing water. At about midway through, her music began to lower down and then it was silent. Okay, I have goosebumps already just thinking about this. So she turns around to open the curtain to see what's going on with her phone, just to find in that moment her fiance slowly pulling back the curtain, sticking his face through and smiling at her. So she's looking at him in confusion, and then he pops his head back out, turns around, leaves the bathroom, flicks the light off, and shuts the bathroom door. She's really pissed, and she's like, I just really don't like certain types of pranks, and call me lame if you want. I really don't want to have to deal with getting out into the wet, slippery darkness of the bathroom and deal with it. So she immediately steps out of the shower, flicks the light back on because it was between the shower and the bathroom door. And now she storms out of the bathroom without even getting a towel, on a hot pursuit to find her fiance. So she finds her fiance sitting at his computer with his headset on, and she absolutely lays into him. But now he has a really confused expression on his face. He's actually pretty scared and startled, and he has no idea why she's coming at him like this. And she just keeps on going about how he better never do that again. So he asks her, explain what I did to you wrong? And then that just pisses her off even more. But then he said he had been playing since before she even went into the shower. And for some reason in that moment, she believed him. She mentioned they'd been together 6 years, and she's very much aware he never pulls pranks of any kind, and he doesn't like them himself. But since she was so tired, she didn't really let any of that sink in before she just lost it on him at first. She does mention now that she thinks of it, it would have been physically impossible for him to get all the way over there and get back to his computer without her having heard him. She says there's 2 different metal baby gates that you gotta go through from the bathroom to the office and a bunch of things in between. Like, she would have known if he would have run from the bathroom towards the office. She says this is absolutely the creepiest thing that has ever happened to her, and she would like to write it off as just sleep deprivation. But that music was turned off, the light switch was off, and that bathroom door had opened and closed. Mentions they always shower with the bathroom door open because there's poor ventilation for steam. So the fact that it had been closed, she made him check the whole apartment for an intruder, even though she says that was his face peeking in and smiling at her. No, thank you. She makes him stay in the bathroom with her while she rinses the conditioner out of her hair. And she does say that things have happened around the place before, like some of their objects are rearranged or put in different places. There were often strange sounds that they couldn't rationalize, and their motion sensor cameras triggering with nothing being there. Unfortunately, she thinks about this every time she showers now. She has no idea what it could have been, but is always open to hearing what other people think. Anyways, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're new here, you gotta follow for more creepy story time.
Let's read a true and scary story. My name is Isabel, and I'm a psychic medium. I've been able to see things since I was a little girl, and trust me, there's a reason others shouldn't. Many of my experiences have been bone-chilling. I've encountered the Hat Man, demons, and I can even sense death. The main takeaway, it sometimes sucks. But the story I want to tell happened when I was 15. We had just moved to Louisiana. The second I laid eyes on the house, I just knew. I begged my mom not to buy it. The house itself was beautiful, but there was this eerie feeling that followed it. My mom was in love with it though, and we ended up moving in. From the moment we stepped inside, the house felt loud. There were so many voices at once, and the spirits felt hateful. One day, while I was doing yard work, I completely zoned out. Suddenly, I saw a child wearing gray overalls. He was unusually pale, and there were beads of fresh sweat on his forehead. In his hands, he held a dead bird with its neck broken. His eyes slowly lifted to meet mine, and I knew it was another warning. The next thing I remember is my mom holding my hands and telling me to stop digging. Apparently, I had been digging the entire time without realizing it. 2 days later, I fell asleep on the couch in the living room. I had a dream where I saw a man hanging. Standing beside me was a woman, pointing at him. Her eyes locked with mine, and she slowly turned and pointed at me. I woke up crying. It felt like they were trying to get me to hurt myself. The entire time we lived in that house, I had crippling headaches. I had never really struggled with headaches before. I saw my doctor, but they said it was nothing, probably just stress. But this part is important. I did try to hurt myself one day. It didn't work. After that, everything only got worse. Scratches, constant nightmares, threats. Then we finally moved out. The headaches stopped almost immediately, and over time, everything slowly started to heal. Later on, we found out the history of the house. It was built in the 1920s. The man who built it had a son who died young from a high fever, most likely the boy that I saw. The man later took his own life after facing financial troubles. We were eventually able to help put him at peace. And now I actually live in that house again. The spirits are gone, everything has been cleared. Most people would probably think I'm crazy to move back in, but to me, it just feels like the end of a cycle, and proof of how resilient I've become. P.S. I have so many more stories, just let me know if you'd like to hear them. Thank you. Thank you so much, Isabel, for sending this story in. This is insane, and I respect you so much for moving back into that house and helping those spirits find peace. I've always been so fascinated by people who are psychic mediums because it amazes me how you are able to sense energies and identify spirits who are still roaming in a space. And I wonder too if the spirits weren't necessarily full of hate, but rather full of sadness almost. They were so upset that they couldn't move on into the afterlife that they wanted you to join them. But again, thank you so much for sending this one in, Isabel. Please do send me more of your stories because this was extremely interesting. And if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, as always, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
Hi, my name is Lucia and I am who fell in love with a married man. I was who had fallen in love with one of my clients. His name is Andrew. He was married with 2 children. He had told me from the very beginning that his marriage was practically dead and that they slept in separate rooms, that the only reasons he was even with the wife was because they had 2 kids together. He then told me that there was something special about me that went beyond our professional relationship. I really wanted to believe him because I wanted a way out of my life, and I saw him as my ticket out of my life. As time went on, he would visit me and stay with me more often, and I feel like we started to bond and I really started to catch feelings for him. As time went on, he led me to believe that he would eventually leave his wife and come live with me, but as the days and weeks went on, I realized that day was never going to come. One night, after being so tired of waiting for him to finally come to me, I was so consumed by jealousy that I decided to seek the help of a bruja. Her name is Suleika, and she did strong work, the type of work that will break up families. She gave me the instructions to sleep with an amulet under my pillow for 7 nights, light a black candle every Friday at 3 a.m., and repeat an incantation exactly the way she had given it to me with no mistakes. At first, nothing really happened, and Andrew started to text me, complaining about his wife. Fights, tension at home. Soon he was coming over more often. He would cry to me saying that he didn't understand what was happening. It felt powerful. I thought that whatever I was doing was working. I went back to La Bruja Zuleika and asked her to reinforce the work, that I wanted it to be more potent, whatever I was doing. She then demanded stronger offerings. She wanted a black rooster, a liquor bottle, a cigar, and a 7-day candle, and a midnight ritual at a crossroads. That night, everything felt wrong. The air felt heavy, dogs were howling, but just as she asked, I went ahead and did exactly what she told me to do. After that, things escalated. Andrew started calling me, panicking, saying that he was hearing voices in his house. He would sometimes hear kids crying that weren't there. He was terrified. His wife was terrified. His children, his actual children, were constantly sick. And instead of fear, I felt power. What had started as love became a war, and I wanted him. It was almost like a competition. I wanted his wife to be destroyed. One of the nights that he came over, I ended up stealing a family photo from his wallet and I gave it to Zuleika. She told me that it was no longer just a love-binding spell, that vengeful spirits were now involved, and I didn't care. I kept going. Blood, personal items, graveyard, soil, more rituals. Every time I left, I felt sick but convinced that the price was worth it because all I wanted was him. I'm going to do a part 2 because the story's getting a little bit long. And also, as I'm sharing this story, my phone keeps overheating for some reason. Hi, my name is Lucia, and I am a Who Fell in Love with a Married Man part 2. So after I stole the family photo out of Andrew's wallet and I gave it to La Bruja Zuleika, Zuleika did her thing, and not long after, the wife ended up trying to unalive herself. It was so bad that her children were the ones that found her. After she got sent to the hospital, it was almost like this weight was put on my chest and I felt like something shifted. Whatever darkness I had put upon her had been sent to me. It was a weird feeling. I can't explain it, but that's just how I felt. I decided to go back to La Bruja Zuleika and to seek some help and find out what was going on. And at this point, La Bruja completely turned me away. She said that she couldn't help me anymore. That what had been done was so dark that if she were to intervene or try to help me in any way or to continue with the work, that it could cost her her life. I tried over and over again to get a hold of Andrew, but he would never answer his phone. At one point, he even blocked me, and I later found out that not long after the wife tried to unalive herself, they packed up and they moved away. As heartbroken as I was with the fact that Andrew was no longer in my life, the real terror began after they completely left. I started to smell this rotten smell in my apartment that I couldn't get rid of no matter what I did. My clients stopped coming to visit me. Neighbors would avoid me. It was almost like I was being isolated, and which is not even the worst part. The worst part was that late at night, I would also hear whispers and things that I couldn't see calling my name in the middle of the night, like I was being tormented. I went back out to try to seek the help of other brujos or other healers that can possibly help me, but every single time I was constantly getting doors slammed in my face. Everyone refused to help me. It's been years since this all took place, and I guess you can say that I survived, but not really. I don't really have a life. I wake up exhausted, sometimes hearing children laughing from my closet, waking with scratches and blood on my sheets. I continue to try to reach out to Andrew, and he still never answers. I even looked for them in the town that I heard that they had moved to, and I was never able to come across them. I even heard that they were now both pastors, and one of their biggest testaments was the fact that they were attacked spiritually by brujeria and were able to overcome it. The story that they share is very closely to what I did to them. I'll just read this last part. She says, I'm not asking for sympathy. I just need someone to know that what started as jealousy became something darker that I could control. And if there's anyone out there that can possibly help me to figure out how to lift this off of my life, I would be forever thankful. It has been years and I live with this every single day. It doesn't matter where I go or what I do, the smell continues and the voices follow me. I feel like I should get a tattoo that says cautionary tale, thou shalt never get involved with brujeria, especially when it has to do with a love spell, because it will come back to you and it will ruin your life over a man. Really? But let me know what you guys think.
We listen, we don't get scared, and we don't judge. Let me tell you guys a story of when my uncle, who was a prophet, decided to give one of his clients magazine mixed with spirit and then took him to the water, and then that man died. So my uncle was somebody who had a calling, right? And he refused to accept that calling. Instead of going to initiation school, he ran to a church that a lot of Limpopians attend. Don't mention any names. We're not shaming any church here. So he went to that church. So basically, he was somebody who used to prophesy in the church and also help people. But then outside of church, he would do things the traditional route, even though he did not want to go to traditional school. That's why I say he took this particular client to the water. You get it? So, this client came to my uncle, because he had applied for a better position at his workplace, and he wanted to make sure that he secures that job, right? So that's what he wanted. He wanted those people to favor him. No problem. So y'all, I could hear, so how I knew this was that my uncle's consultation room was a shack, and I put my ear there, and even if you don't put your ear there, you can still hear. Do you understand? So they did whatever they did inside there. I think he steamed or whatever, you know. He still practiced the things of the church that he attended, but he also did things traditionally, if you understand what I mean. So he steamed, you know, when they put the rocks on fire, and then they take the rocks out, and then they put it inside something, and then they throw things in there, and then smoke comes out, and you have to inhale that smoke. That's what he was doing, not necessarily steaming, but that. So after that, he comes out smelling like smoke. And then when he comes out, so my uncle starts mixing this drink. I am looking at him this entire time. He mixed this drink where he puts in spirit, the purple liquid magazine. You see those black things that come out of those small bottles, not the actual magazine. He mixed oil as well as those coffee. No man, not coffee. Those loose tea. Yes, loose tea. And then I don't know what else he put in, and then he mixed it. Gave it to this guy in a whole jug. Right? Gave it to this person to drink. The person drank the entire thing, and you can tell after he drank that thing, he felt kind of woozy. And they kept on cheering each other on, like, yeah, do you see what, after you do this, I'm telling you that position is yours. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I'm watching everything unfold, but you can tell, man, this person is not okay after drinking. How can you drink spirit and be okay? You know? He's sitting there. This person is sitting there waiting for my uncle. Right? No problem. So my uncle tells him that, no, listen, we have to go to the stream or whatever to wash away any bad luck, any curses that anybody has thrown on you. This is to basically secure, to make sure that you walk in there with nothing but pure grace and luck. No problem. You see, the nice thing about what my uncle was doing was that he had an assistant, and the assistant was who? My cousin. And me and my cousin were what? Close. This was another cousin, by the way. So naturally my uncle calls him to go with him so they can help him, and I get in the car with him. So I'm sitting in the middle next to this person, this man that came to consult, and he keeps on burping, and whenever he burps you can smell the spirit, guys, coming out of his mouth. And I'm just looking, I side-eyed him like, are you here? Are you sure you should be going here, not to a hospital? Because you could tell, man, he's not okay, but he's trying to be strong, like it's gonna pass, it's gonna be alright, you understand? Cool. So we get, and another thing, this particular stream, the day before, it had rained, guys. So when we got there, the water was very like high, you know. It was here, it was a lot, and it was also angry, man. It was just moving roughly, because you know how sometimes certain things move this way until it gets to a place where the water actually stops. Do you get me? Like a river goes to a certain place and eventually it stops. Like a drain. I'm trying to explain so you guys understand. Like, you know, a drain, right? When it rains heavily, the water goes down because some places are like this, and then it goes into the drain. You get it. Yes. But we went to a place where the water was moving roughly. Cool. We get there and they take out their buckets, they take out all the things that they need, and you know, I am walking behind them, and as I'm walking. I didn't even take that many steps and the water was already here. I was like, you know what? I'm about to just turn around. I was fully clothed as well, because I also wanted to go see what they were doing, right? So I decided, you know what? This is where I am going to end my journey, and I'm going to turn around and at least stand where the water is above my knees. Do you understand? I go back. How? As I go back, I'm watching all of this unfold. You know most how they cleanse a person by the river, by the stream, by the water. They take that 25 liter, fill it with water, put whatever they put, and then they throw it on the person. Guys, this person is shaking, ne? From where I can't really see what's happening, but I can see. Actually, I can't really hear what's happening, but I can see what's happening, because this person started shaking. He shaked and he shaked and he shook and he shaked. And I'm like, you know, I see my uncle and my cousin are holding him, and he falls. Remember, I told you all this water was moving. As he falls, guys, I don't know what happened, but he started moving with the water, and then my cousin had to dive inside and like swim to go pull him out. They pull him out by the leg. They like make him stand up, guys. He gets to where, they take him to the car. When they take him to the car, they start to punch him, to hit him on the chest so that the water comes out. This water came out smelling like spirit. It came out purple. He was still breathing, but you can tell that no. This setup here, something is wrong. Something is really wrong. My uncle decides no. He's gonna be a man of integrity. He takes this person to the hospital. When they get to the hospital, I wasn't inside the consultation room. I was outside because I was young. My cousin tells me that, this man just died on the hospital bed. And the police asked my dad what happened, and my dad said that he doesn't know what he took before, but because they did tell my dad that, they did tell my uncle that they found spirit inside this man's bloodstream, inside this man's stomach. And my uncle was like, no, all I did was steam him with the thingy, the smoke thingy, and then I took him to the river. After that, he started like shaking, and he had a seizure. My uncle thinks he had a seizure, and then he fell inside the water, and then they pulled him out, and then they took him to the hospital. Okay, so these people were like, they're gonna do further investigations, whatever. And at some point, I went back home, right? When I got home, I think 2 or 3 days after that, guys, this police car comes. This police car stops at the gate, guys. I was playing outside. They get inside, they ask where my mom is. I tell them my mom is right here. So they tell my mom they would like to ask me a few questions, regarding what happened to Mr. Smangmang, baba. And then my mom is like, you better tell the truth. And the police officer, Shame, you guys, I snitched, okay? Moral of the story, I snitched. So this lady, Shame, was so comforting, and she told me that if I tell the truth, they're going to reward me with something. Guys, she asked me questions that I felt like initially led me into a trap, because I tried lying. I tried using the initial story, but you could tell that my answers don't make sense, And I think my uncle never coached me on what to say, because they didn't think that they would come to me. So, she said if I tell the truth, she's going to give me a reward. If I lie, I'm going to jail. And I thought, what, jail? No. And they scared me on some, you're not going to see your mom, you're not going to this. Sana, I told the truth. From start to finish, from when he steamed him to when he gave him spirit and magazine. I don't know what magazine was, but I described it as it was dot things that came inside an orange bottle. Did I not snitch on my uncle? I told them everything, guys. What I just told you, I told him. And the lady was like, thank you for being honest. They took out this gift package with chocolate, snacks, and all of that. It was inside a basket, and then, it was cute, and it had like a balloon saying, well done. Well done on being a snitch. Fine. Okay, a couple of days later, my uncle is arrested, guys. The community members are mad because now they know the truth. They burnt down my uncle's consultation room. They didn't burn his house specifically. They burnt down the consultation room because, my uncle has a family. Burnt down the consultation room. My uncle comes out on bail. My uncle decides, nope, I can't live with myself. He does what? He unalives himself using a rope. Unalives himself, and the community, guys, till this day is still angry. The family of that man hates us. They hate each and every single thing tied to my uncle. Even my cousin had to move out of that place. Even my cousin and his mom and his siblings had to move out because of the way the community hates us. The family is worse. So till this day, those people really blame us for what happened, and it's really not our fault. Pacheco.
This right here is exactly why you should never camp alone in the forest, especially at night. It all started with this guy right here who was camping alone in a forest in some kind of treehouse. Now, as you can see, the guy is just minding his business. He's trying to get something to eat, but then suddenly he heard the noise coming from the bushes. When he heard that noise, he immediately grabbed his camera because he wanted to record everything for his video. After grabbing the camera, he pointed to where he thought the noise came from, but as you can see, he couldn't see anything. There is nothing to see here, and the noise disappeared just after. So, knowing that this stuff happens all the time in forests, in wild in general, the guy probably thought that it was just some animal, and then he went back to what he was doing. After a very long while, specifically very late at night, the guy was sleeping, as you can see, and this is where he heard the noise again. Difference is, this time the noise around the bushes sounded much clearer, and it sounded like a human. So this made him immediately wake up, and while being completely freaked out, the first thing that he did was grabbing his camera. So he grabbed his camera, he started pointing down his flashlight, and at first he didn't see anything until he saw this. You're wondering, bro, what the hell is this? Well, this looks like a woman in old clothes alone in a forest, but that's not the problem. The problem is she's laughing out loud. Like, yes, she's just laughing out loud, walking in the same area. The guy even tried to scare her off by screaming, but she wouldn't even look up. After that the video was posted, some people assumed that it was just a crazy woman lost in the forest. Other people are like, nah, the way that she left, that shit is not human.
Hey! ชิบหายแล้วผมโดนหลอกเนี่ยมึงใครเนี่ยเฮ้ย
Look, bro, I'm not trying to ruin the mood, but she's been laughing for 1 minute. Come on, bro, it can't be that funny.
Weird stuff happens all the time in northern Arizona. There was these two brothers. They got a landscaping job up in Flagstaff. And every day they would drive to this job from Phoenix. Well, this one particular day, they end up working until late at night. And so once they got their truck packed, they start to make their way back to Phoenix. Every time they would drive back, they would stop, get off the road, and go down this dirt highway where they would park the car and they would enjoy some green. So as they're about halfway to Phoenix, they pull off on this side road and they head deep out into the desert. Turn the truck off and they start, putting on some music, kind of hanging out. That's when all of a sudden the air got kind of stale and everything went quiet. And the younger brother who's in the passenger seat, he just gets this weird feeling. And all of a sudden he just starts hearing this loud scream coming into his ear. And he feels himself being frozen. He cannot move. He cannot do anything. Then all of a sudden it stops. And when he turns and he looks at his brother is like in fear. He's afraid. And next thing he knows, his brother is starting this vehicle and he's speeding off down this road. And he's almost falling out of the vehicle because his brother's hitting these bumps and he's going over these hills, really fast. And he could see that his older brother was bothered by something. Something had freaked him out, but he didn't know what. So finally they get onto the main highway and he keeps asking his brother, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? What are you doing? Finally, his brother pulls over to the side of the road and he starts crying. And he looks at his younger brother and he said, it had you. It took you. And he looks at his older brother like, what are you talking about? He goes, you don't recall any of that? He goes, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I just seen you driving off. He said, well, when I parked the car, he said, I looked over at you, and standing behind you next to the window was this very tall, skinny creature that had gray skin and these very bulbous black eyes bulging out of its face. And he said this thing had 2 fingers with sharp nails. And it reached into the truck and it grabbed him and pulled him right through the truck. And he said he tried to grab for you and I tried to reach for you and like tried to get you. But I couldn't move. My body froze. And I heard a voice inside my head saying, if you follow me, if you come after me, something will happen to your brother. And he said about 20 minutes later, As I sat there in the truck, just afraid, hoping that you would return, you came walking back to the vehicle. And he said, once you got in the vehicle, I got us out of there as fast as I could. He had no recollection of any of this. He had no clue that this even happened to him. But his brother was persistent that something took him that night. There was this man named Dave. Dave grew up on the Navajo reservation. And him and his friends used to go to this place that was home to these old Pueblo cliff dwellings. They called it the Canyon del Marato. And this area was known in the 1800s for this Spanish massacre where several Native Americans had lost their lives. Now, they used to go out to this spot and they would go ghost hunting and they would kind of goof around and have a good time. So him and his friends, they get in their car and they drive out to the spot. And as they get out of their vehicle, they start walking towards this cliff where these Pueblo ruins are. So that's when they started to hear these loud screams, and they were coming from all around them. And then they heard these loud bangs. And then they started to hear what sounded like these thumps, as if something was being thrown off this cliff and it was hitting the side of these rocks. And that's when it occurred to them that this massacre that had taken place in the 1800s, it was replaying itself. So they got in their car and they left. So many years later, he decides to go back with a girlfriend and show her this spot where these Pueblo dwellings are. So they pull up and they park their car and they get out. And he says as they started to walk, they noticed these glowing lights up ahead. And as the lights started to come closer to them, they could see that these were people. They were Native Americans, but they were glowing. And as they looked closer, they said they almost looked like they were part skeleton, part human. And they were walking like zombies towards them. So they ran and they jumped back in their car. And soon they are circled by all of these Native American skeletons that are banging on the window. They're trying to get in the car. Eventually he manages to get the car started and they get out of there. And they almost chalked it up to being just their imagination when he pulls over and he sees all of these handprints all over the vehicle. Arizona is a very supernatural place. It has become a hotspot for paranormal activity. And a lot of strange things happen in the desert, especially at night. Now, this story comes out of Williams, Arizona. There was this young man named Bo. Bo and his college buddies were going on a road trip to Flagstaff. And they happened to be driving right past Williams, Arizona, when they pulled off onto the exit. Now, they come across this gas station and they pull in. And the first thing they notice is standing next to the store is this older Native American man. He's wearing this black cowboy hat that is decorated. He's got this big belt buckle and all this jewelry, and he's covered in turquoise. And he looked like some kind of character. This Native American man walks over to the car and he starts to talk with him. And he says, I'm Native American, but I'm also Mormon. I've lived here most of my life, but I've been traveling around the country. Well, Bo said that he started to go into this trance. And the next thing he knew, they were driving on a back highway headed towards Sedona, and he had amnesia. He could not remember like what had happened and how they got back on the road. The other weird thing was this Native American man was in the car with him. And as he looked at his friends, he could tell they were just as confused as him. So as they're driving down this desert highway, this man becomes sort of aggressive and scary. He starts saying, you know, you guys being alone out here, a lot could go wrong. People disappear all the time. There are strange things that people see. And they start to get a little freaked out. And for some reason, they couldn't just stop and let this guy out. Like, they felt compelled to continue to drive. He then leads them off onto this dirt road. And they are now deep in the middle of the desert. He then tells them, hey, up ahead, I want you to stop. So they stopped the vehicle. And he said, look, I live just up over that way. You take this trail, and I live in this small little trailer. But I want to thank you guys for giving me a ride. Come to my trailer, and I will give you some of my crystals that I sell. And they're like, no, you know, we're good. We got to get back, headed to Flagstaff. And he says, no, you don't understand. I insist. Come to my trailer. And they're like, no, we're good. Like, we really need to get going. And right at that moment, as Bo looks at this man, he sees his eyes change to yellow for a second. They start glowing, this hueish yellow color. And he said, that's when the man said, you guys wait right here. I'm going to go to my trailer, and I'm going to get you some of these crystals. And when I come back, I'll give it to you. But you stay right here. So he just took off into the desert. He disappeared. They couldn't see him anymore. So they decided, let's get out of here. Let's drive off. So they take off, and they start heading back down this desert road. When all of a sudden, this coyote came out of nowhere, and it started chasing their vehicle. And for about 1.5 miles, this coyote kept pace with them until eventually ran off into the desert. And still, to this day, they have no clue who that man was or how they picked him up or gave him a ride.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. Do you see what I'm saying about the stacking? Hello. It's here if you want it. Now onto the story. I've been able to see and hear things that nobody else can for as long as I can remember. I also have a very strong ability of discernment, so I can usually feel a type of presence and know things about people from just hearing about them from secondhand conversations. But this is my experience of something that I can't fully explain. When I was around 5 years old, I was visiting my grandparents in Tennessee. They owned a house with a large amount of woods out back. I knew the woods fairly well. When I was walking, I saw a man. He was dark, not exactly human. Just dark, like unlike anything that I'd seen at that age. I took a step closer to see him better. I made eye contact and it smiled. And you didn't fucking run? Not comforting, not calm. It was like a storm. Its eyes were hollow, just extremely dark with a small white pupil. Hightail it the fuck out of there. As it came closer, I could smell blood heavy like a cloth had been soaked in blood for hours. Yuck! I stayed and spoke to it. Wonderful survival skills. It came closer and reached its hand out. Its figure was now distorted like a person who was hit with a car. His torso was stretched and hunched. While his hand was reaching for me, I noticed his hands. Long, bony fingers and nails curved, broken, unnaturally. He softly brushed against my face. Bitch! Get the fuck away from me. Shitting, crying, throwing up. And for the first time it spoke, its words sounded muffled and raspy. It said, "You are mine," in a voice that was almost a gurgling whisper. Fuck no, bitch. Fuck no. I don't fully understand what it meant by that. I don't understand why you didn't run. But recently we moved to South Carolina and I have seen him again and again in my room and in my dreams. I haven't said anything to him, but he knows. I can tell he knows that I can still see him. His smile is worse than before, and it's grown into a madness, like he's waiting for something. He stalks closer as I see him appearing more often, and I can hear it scratching at the floors and walls. He wants something or someone. He wants you, my friend. You are his, is what he said, when you didn't run away from him in the fucking woods. The thing is waiting and watching like he's getting ready for something. I hear the scratching one night, and it said malice. If you have any answers or make a video about this, please tag me at liz.e.l. At liz.e.l, you're fucked. Royally. Call somebody. Anybody. Priest. Etsy witch. A crackhead down the street. I don't know, but call somebody. Immediately. Because I'm scared. I'm scared. That's scary as fuck. If anybody has any advice, in the comments, put it there. Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. It's a 10. It's fucking 10. It's a 10. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link to in my profile. I wish that y'all would watch all the way through these damn videos so you could hear that. I get so many comments. Where do I send a story? I tell ya, just be patient. Patience is a fucking virtue, man. Anyway, see you at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
What secret would ruin your life? This lady says that her secret would ruin her marriage. She says that she got married when she was 24 to the boyfriend she had while she was in university. They were both foreigners where they were, and that they would always go party when they were younger. After they graduated from university, she said that they both started working really hard and they both calmed down with the partying. Their goal was to save up a lot of money so that they can have a big wedding. When he asked her to marry him, she thought they were both on the same page, that they both wanted to be very serious. They wanted to create a family. They wanted to have a home of their own. So they ended up getting married, and she explains that the first year was just one drunken night after the other and after the other on his part. And because she got pregnant right away, she would be at home just waiting to see what time he would get there. Obviously, she did have a conversation with him, but it didn't end anywhere because he would continue to party, and that is where she started to threaten him with divorce. So one night he went out to drink and she had to stay home because at this point the baby was a few months old. She was at home moving some stuff, and that's when she fell and accidentally cut her leg really bad. He didn't find out about this because when she tried to call and tell him what happened, he didn't answer the phone. It went to voicemail. So when he got home that night, he was extremely drunk, and this time she was just over it. She didn't want to fight with him. So the following morning when he woke up and saw that she had a cut on her leg, she made him believe that in his drunken stage he pushed her while she had the baby in her arms. She told him she was gonna leave him because he was violent and because he put her and the baby in danger. He cried so much because he couldn't believe the person he turned into when he would get drunk. It has been 12 years and he has not touched a drop of alcohol since then. She says she's not proud of herself, but she does not regret what she did. She says that sometimes she feels like people need that kind of a scare to understand the severity of the situation. I think she should keep that secret. Keep it to yourself. Hopefully he never reads the story and says, cut on their leg, put the baby in danger. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I had a nightmare last night, and it jogged a memory that I suppressed when I was living in my haunted home in Japan. And it's a quick little story. It's nothing crazy, but since I'm thinking about it, you gotta hear about it. I remember it was one evening night, and my family was really big on movies. We never got to pick the movie, but our parents would pick the movie, and we would all have to sit and watch the movie. It was like forced family bonding. It was awful. And I remember going upstairs, getting into my PJs, turning off the light, and coming down the stairs, because my parents were really big on turning the light off, not wasting electricity. And I was like, oh, wait. I went upstairs to go grab my water that I had left, my little water bottle. So as I'm going back up the stairs, I can see light shining from my bedroom. And I stopped on the stairs for a moment. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, no, I remember turning that off. And as I get up the stairs, for some reason my door is closed, but the light is on. And when I got up to the last step and I looked at my door, I looked down on that little gap under the door, and I saw a shadow of feet standing right behind my door. And my heart dropped. And I ran back down the stairs and I said, Mom, there's someone in my room. There's someone in my room. And she goes, there's nobody in your room. I go, I need you to go look. So she goes up the stairs with me. When we get to the top of the stair, my bedroom light is off and the door is wide open. And then she looks at me and she goes, there's nothing. And she walks back down the stairs. She passes me on her way down and I peek my head around the corner and I look. And there was nothing. But I know for a fact that my door was shut, the light was on, and I saw somebody's feet under the doorway. Like, I saw the shadow. But when my mom got up there was nothing. And I looked into that doorway, pitch black, and I got this really uneasy, queasy feeling in my stomach. And as I went back down the stairs, I looked over my shoulder, constantly checking. And I got to the bottom of the stairs, I looked back up, and the light was on. In that moment, I decided, fuck it. If my mom gets mad at me for leaving a light on, oh well. I'm not going back upstairs to turn it off. And I watched the movie in the living room, thinking the whole time, what the hell did I just see? And when the movie was over and it was time to go to bed, I looked back up the stairway and the light was off. But everybody was in the living room watching the movie. My mom, my stepdad, my sister, and myself. But for some reason that light was off and I had to go to bed in that room.
Did a skinwalker get in his car? Gloss on so I can run this mouth. Now focus. Scary story time. I have picture proof. I will show you, but you have to listen to the story first. Seth grew up with his grandmother in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Now, he said this happened last fall. He was a freshman in college. He came home for fall break, and he noticed that his grandmother was acting a little weird, like a little off, kind of like she was nervous or something. Now, he said that he was brought up superstitious. Like, she explained to him how dangerous the Appalachian Mountains were and not to play around with any of that stuff, and he believed her, but he didn't really buy into it as much as she did. All of his friends are home for break. He's going to go to a friend's house for a party. As he's leaving, she goes to give him like a hug goodbye and pulls him in and tells him, hey, if you see anyone standing in the road, do not roll your window down. He was used to her saying things like this, so he just kind of nods and she looks at him again and she's like, no, I'm serious, like, don't. He knows that she's acting a little strange, but he's kind of used to her being like that, so he gives her a kiss goodbye, goes on his way. He's almost to his friend's house. He's driving down this like winding road when he comes around the corner, and sure enough, there's a woman standing in the road. Standing there in what he described as like this dress that looked like it was homemade, like she'd made it herself, and she's looking at the ground. Now, being from the Appalachian Mountains, he said that a lot of people do things there that they shouldn't be doing, so he thinks that might be what's going on with her, and that's why she's standing in the road. So he just kind of like flicks the lights at her like, hey, I'm here, you know, are you gonna get out of the road or what? She doesn't move. So as he's going to like reach for the door to roll the window down, that's when he remembers that his grandma was like, hey, wait, don't do that. And as he's doing that, he looks at her again and she's looking at him now, and she like tilted her head in the direction of his hand, and then she smiled. That creeped him out enough that he broke eye contact and just looked down, and that's when he notices that she's on her toes, like the tips of her toes like leaned forward. Think Rose from Titanic, tip of her toes. That was enough to stop him in his tracks, but not enough to stop him from just cracking the window just a little bit. And apparently that's all it took, because immediately he gets like a boom on the back of his headrest. He's knocked forward, and as he does, he like, his head goes like that, and then he looks back up, and he said when he did, she was gone. He knew instantly that she was in the back. Immediately turns around like, you know, like this, and heads back to his grandma's house. Jumps out of the truck, runs back into his grandma, finds his grandma sitting at the dining room table, and she just looks at him and says, you cracked the window, didn't you? I don't know, crack the window means like you just, you know, bring it down a little bit. But anyway, he said, yeah, he did by accident. And she said, did you look in the rear view on the way home? He said, no, I just turned around, got out of there and came here. And she said, well, as long as you didn't look in the rear view, then she won't come in the house. What rule is that? The next morning he finds this. What happened in this car? Who did this? Who put these scratches in this headrest? Why are there only like 3 marks too? The woman did that, then the thing or whatever, the skinwalker, whatever it was, did that? Why was that all they wanted and then they just left him alone after that? Why are skinwalkers so unpredictable? One thing I do know is you will never find me reaching to roll the window down in Appalachia, not even in the drive-thru. I'm going in.
Down the rabbit hole conspiracy theory that seed companies, chemical companies, and the government, the USDA, all of it, in cahoots to stop you from growing your own food and then make you completely dependent upon them. Yeah, that. Actually so much worse than you think it is, because honestly, if they keep trying, this is just what I think, if they keep trying to control everything, we are literally standing at the precipice of an unimaginable, debilitating fallout from this. Stay with me, let me explain. Okay, so back in the 1990s, Monsanto tried to develop something that was coined the Terminator gene. This would absolutely 100% stop any seed that grew from their food or their plants to be able to be planted and then produce fruit. Right now, with GMO seeds, can you plant them and will fruit grow? Second gen, yeah, probably. But then as you go down and down and down the line, if you seed save, eventually, no. It's just going to be a beautiful plant that's not going to bear any fruit or very, very tiny. With the Terminator gene that Monsanto was trying to develop, it would have stopped absolutely anything from growing from anything that you planted. Luckily, people did step in and they were like, this is unethical. You can't do this. And Monsanto was like, all right, well, we won't. And technically, they did not. Long before the Terminator gene was ever even on the table, companies were developing seedless plants. The plants that these plants produced would not have seeds that you could seed save. You wouldn't be able to plant anything because there were no seeds in them. Can seedless plants occur naturally in nature? Absolutely they can. But they're not going to reproduce. They are considered a dead-end line. That's it. It's over. Until humans and corporations step in and start effing with nature. For example, have you ever eaten a banana candy and you think, this does not taste like bananas? No, it doesn't. It tastes like the bananas that they ate in the 1950s, which were called Big Mike bananas. Bananas that we eat now are Cavendish bananas. Completely different from the Big Mike bananas that they ate in the 1950s. Well, what happened to Big Mike bananas? Well, Big Mike bananas were also grown to be seedless. They were propagated, they were cloned and cloned and cloned and cloned and cloned. When you clone something, they are all genetically exactly the same. Any banana that you walk into the grocery store and buy is a clone of another banana. Big Mike bananas, they got one single disease, wiped out the entire crop. And we're not talking in one location. We're talking this was everywhere that they grew these bananas. So then we switched to Cavendish bananas, which are more disease resistant. They're more robust. It should be fine. Except it's not, because nature once again said this isn't natural and is now attacking the Cavendish bananas. All of the Cavendish bananas are getting the same disease and it is wiping them out. And it is in different continents. Same disease, different continents. These bananas are all just clones of each other. There's no seed to pass on any immunities to. There's no genetic differences. There's nothing to pass down for these plants to fight this disease. So they just keep getting attacked and attacked and attacked. They can't evolve. So then let's take Dole, for example, who BlackRock is also a major shareholder in. Let's take Dole, for example. Dole says, okay, but we have, more advanced technology now. We can fix this. One of the options is to just shoot radiation at the bananas and hope for a good mutation that's going to fight these diseases. Just let that sink in for a second. Shooting radiation into our food, that's how we're going to keep these lines going. That's not normal. Any seedless plant that you see at the grocery store is just a clone of an original seedless plant. Did they just happen to stumble upon one in nature that was seedless and decided to propagate it and clone it? No. There's a lot of science behind it. I'm going to give you a super watered down version, but let's just say you have this banana plant, right? You don't want seeds in it anymore. So what do? They give it colchicine. They just make it sterile. Okay? That's granddaddy banana. And then they clone him, and they clone him, and they clone him, and they clone him. Clone. Mark me. I said it right now. These companies would prefer to move to everything being seedless. They'll just propagate it. They'll just clone it over and over and over again. The perfect plant, the most seedless plant, the most robust plant. We're just going to clone it. You go to the grocery store, you buy it. It's perfect. It's beautiful. You can't get seeds out of it. You can't grow anything from it. And I think that was the workaround for Monsanto not initiating the Terminator gene. At this point in time, you can still purchase heirloom seeds, which I would urge anyone to do. You're going to have a lower yield. Things are not going to be uniformed. They're not going to be beautiful and polished like the plants or fruits and vegetables in the grocery store, but they will be real food, because I'm convinced at this point the things that we eat, I don't even think it's real food anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's not real food. Dude, seed companies own patents on seeds. No, you can't own a patent on a seed. That is just dystopian. That is diabolical. But they found the workaround because they said, well, if we, modify these to treat them for diseases, and then we coat them with chemicals that are also going to be disease resistant, while we don't own the patent to the seed itself, we do own the patent to the chemicals and the combinations that we're either putting into the seeds or onto the seeds. They don't own the patent to the seed. They own the patent to what's on the seed, what's inside the seed, okay? Why would we not just grow heirloom seeds on a larger scale? Because there's no profit. There's no profit in that because you're going to get lower yields, inconsistent sizing, inconsistent color, inconsistent everything. Better on a large scale to just use the patented seed that's going to grow robust, going to grow bigger, going to grow better. That's patented, yes. That's patented by a corporation. The corporation owns the seed. Than to do heirloom. When I said that I don't believe that seed companies, chemical companies, the government, the USDA, whatever, wants us to be able to go into small communities, farm like 25 to 35 acres, and be successful at that, and grow our own food from heirloom seeds, okay? I'm not talking about communities with like 2,000 or 3,000 people. I'm talking like 50 people. And then they trade with this 50, and then they trade with this 50 and that 50 until we just reset the system. You can't sustain thousands of people on 25 to 35 acres. It's not going to happen. A lot of the people in the comments on the last video that I posted about this are arguing about this, saying, but you can't make money doing that. Because that's how brainwashed we are. We are so brainwashed that we can't look at anything from a survival sustainability perspective. We have to look at everything from a profit perspective. Take profit out of the equation. Just take profit out of the equation altogether. That's bingo. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But if these companies keep producing these seedless varieties of everything, and I understand that right now, not everything is seedless and can be seedless, but would they like to go towards that? I believe they would. Then you're just eating clones. They're going to get attacked by diseases. What are they going to do? Shoot radiation at everything. And then what are you even eating at that point? I don't know. But nature will reset. It will wipe this shit out because it's not natural. And then what happens? So buy your heirloom seeds, plant those, seed save, your local library, seed banks. Do what you can. Save your seeds and just, take this for what it is. It's just conspiracy theory. I don't know.
When it comes to skinwalkers, New Mexico is number one. Then you have Arizona, and third, I would say, is Texas. Now, more specifically, the western region of Texas has a significant number of skinwalker sightings. This specific story takes place outside of Odessa, Texas, right near the New Mexico border. There was this rancher named Roy. Roy purchased this 1,000-acre ranch, and when he first moves onto the property, he said he was confronted by this Native American man. And he said this man told him that on your property are these mounds. And he said, those are burial mounds. They are sacred to my people. Whatever you do, do not disturb them. He said, use all of the land, but leave those mounds alone. So Roy said, okay, whatever, I'm not anticipating touching them even. So after a year of Roy living on this ranch, he needed to expand and he needed to grow his ranch. So he started looking into this area where the mounds were. And one day he brings his tractor out there and gets ready to kind of clear this land. Well, as he started up his tractor and started to go towards the mound, he said he started to hear what sounded almost like Native American music and chants. And he said the closer he got to these mounds, the louder it got. And then finally, he said he heard a really loud, hey. And when he looked over out behind the mounds, he said there was a Native American man standing there. And he had these glowing eyes. And he was there for a brief second, and then he just disappeared. So Roy was like, okay, this is weird, like maybe I need to get some sleep. So he goes back to his house and he lays down. Well, later that night, he awakes to just kind of like a very stillness in the air. And he said that's when he heard very clearly something say, get out of here now. And a second time he hears it, get out of here now. And a third time, get out of here now. So he jumps up out of bed and he goes all around his house. He cannot find anyone and he has no idea where this sound is coming from. And that's when he hears it a fourth time, and he goes over to his window in the bedroom. And when he looks out, he said he's seen this owl sitting up in the tree. And as he looked directly at this owl, it said, "Get out of here now." And then he said it flew off into the tree, up into the sky. So a couple weeks pass, and he's like, you know what? I got to clear that field. Like, I got to take out those mounds and expand the ranch. So he goes out there again with his tractor. And as he begins to start clearing these mounds, he said that's when he seen this pack of coyotes. And they started coming closer and closer towards him. And he noticed that their eyes were glowing. And he said they would not let him get anywhere near these mounds. And that scared him. So much so that he went back to the house and said, I will never touch those mounds again. And still to this day, those mounds sit there untouched. There's one word you should never say. Absolutely never ever say the word skinwalker. Because when you say this word, you are sending up a beacon to say, hey, I'm here. And you are inviting this thing, right, to come after you. Even thinking about it, even watching videos about it, can bring it about. And that's why a lot of Native American cultures, if you ask them questions about it, they don't talk about it at all. They want to forget about it, that even happened. I've heard that the reason it doesn't like you to say that word is because you are essentially calling it what it is. And by acknowledging and saying its name, you are, right, telling it that it is evil, right? I heard this story. There was a man, and he was driving down this highway one night. Now, he didn't believe in any kind of legend or lore. And so he's on the phone with a friend, and he's talking to him, and he mentions the word. And his friend's like, oh, no, man, you're not supposed to say that. Don't you know that? And he's like, oh, man, that's just a myth. Like, that's not true. And as he's driving down this road, he slams on his brakes because he sees something on the side of the road, like kind of going out into the road. When he looks closely, he sees it's some kind of like coyote. And he said as he got a better look at the coyote, he could see that it had yellow eyes. So that kind of freaked him out a little bit, and he kind of just drives around this thing. And he starts slowly going, watching it in its mirror to see what it does. Well, it starts running after his car. And he starts speeding, and he's going as fast as he can. And this thing is chasing him and keeping up with his vehicle. Well, he thinks he's finally lost it because he doesn't see it anymore. And he thinks, oh, it's gone. I'm all right. Well, when he makes it home, he gets out of his car and he notices in the woods by his house that there's a coyote, like, moving around in the woods.
I saw your post about Pacheco Pass. I chose not to comment publicly. Some stories are not meant to be attached to a name. On my father's side, my family is of Native and Mexican descent. Growing up, the stories of Pacheco Pass were not legends to us. They were warnings, told quietly, passed down without explanation. One story was about time itself. People would drive the pass believing they had been on the road for minutes. Only when they emerged did they realize that 4 or 5 hours had vanished. No detours, no stops, just lost time, as if the road had folded in on itself. The second story involved a figure along the roadside, a hitchhiker, standing alone, waving for help. Some described a woman, others an older man dressed in clothing from another era. Drivers would slow, sometimes stop, but when they reached the spot where the figure stood, there was no one there. My father offered an explanation that carried more weight than rumor. He said these were Yokuts spirits. I don't know if I said that right. This is how it's spelled. Bound to the land, taking revenge on those who pass through without understanding where they are. Pacheco Pass, he said, is not empty, it is watched, and it has never been finished with us. This was told so eloquently. I loved reading that. Also, I love when I get Native stories on here that really just reaffirm the experiences that people have on Pacheco Pass, the time jump and loop experiences people have, the hitchhikers they see on the side of the road, and I don't know, I just think it's so cool when it just kind of validates what people are saying. If any of you have ever experienced anything like this on Pacheco Pass, let me know in the comments or send me your story.
might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
We are back with another Trini Paranormal, Trini Scary Story, Trini Folklore for you today, and I have 2 stories for you. Well, you're lucky that it's 2 short stories, so I treated all it to 2 scary paranormal experiences in Trinidad and Tobago. One is in a plant that I cannot name because I don't want to get sued, and the second one is on the priority bus route. So the first story, our follower said, "Hi, so my husband wanted to share his paranormal experience at a particular plant that makes things that we eat and I can't name. So he said that it was in broad daylight and he and his co-workers were fixing a machine on Saturday. So the factory was empty. And while they were working, something passed like a breeze and touched my husband on his foot. Both of them felt the breeze. While the next 2 weeks, another technician saw a man in a coat taking out parts, and when it clicked to him, there were only certain people with access to that place in the factory. He went looking in the room, and when he went there, there was not a person in sight. I am totally convinced that every single factory or plant in Trinidad and Tobago have had some sort of paranormal experience, and somebody knows somebody that have had an experience in a plant. Now, this story is in the priority bus route, so this is what this person says. So, I was waiting around 12:15 a.m. for my goddaughter along the side of the bus route, and she was in a maxi coming up. While me and my daughter sitting in the car waiting, no vehicles on the road, but we heard a car speed up the bus route, and within 5 seconds we heard it speed back down, but we did not see a car in sight. I feel like every part of Trinidad and Tobago haunted. So do you believe that the plants and these industries in Trinidad and Tobago haunted? And do you believe that the priority bus route is also haunted? Because I do believe that, things can happen. We have, unfortunately, tragedies and accidents that happen on the bus route. And our person seemed to have heard a phantom car pass up and down the road speeding without seeing a vehicle. So let me know, have you ever had a paranormal experience on the bus route, on the road, or in a factory or plant?
Get ready with me while I tell you this ghost story. This story was sent to my email. If you have any scary stories, paranormal stories, ghost stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio, and this story has been paraphrased. This happened in southeastern Alabama, a place where the back roads stretch on forever and the woods feel older than they should. My cousin and I had gone out driving late one night, just cruising the back roads, looking for deer, talking about life. It was our version of therapy. Our grandpa was dying at the time, and we both felt it, that heavy, quiet grief that sits in your chest, even when you're not talking about it. He had passed not long before this. We eventually pulled over at a spot locals called Bone Bridge. It's exactly what it sounds like. A small bridge with a creek running under it, and scattered below are whole animal skeletons. Not just bones. Complete remains. Like something leaves them there on purpose. What? What? My cousin decided to go down under the bridge for a minute. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I stayed up top and told her I was going to step into the woods to use the bathroom. I only walked about 5 to 10 yards in, barely far enough for the road noise to disappear. It was around 10 p.m. and the woods were dark in the way where your flashlight feels useless. As I turned around, my eyes caught on something ahead of me. No, not while you're vulnerable and using a bathroom in the woods. No, it's like at the actual worst possible time. A broken pine tree stump. It was tall, way too tall to just be a stump though. Somewhere between 10 and 13 feet high. Snapped over like something had pushed it down and left it leaning. And then I realized there were eyes looking back at me. No! All I'm picturing now is something super tall, bent over in a weird angle, just like, they were large and unblinking, sitting far higher than they should have been. No. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. Okay, Alabama, woods, probably a black bear. So I lifted my flashlight and shined it directly at the stump. That was my first mistake. No, your first mistake was going off into the woods by Bone Bridge because it wasn't a bear. What the light caught was something hunched over, partially hidden behind the stump. I want to die. Easily 15 feet tall if it stood up fully. I'm getting chills. Its body was bent at an unnatural angle, like it didn't move the way living things are supposed to move. Absolutely not. And it was eating something. Hanging from its mouth was what looked like a coyote, limp and torn apart like a rag doll. I could see the way its body moved, not chewing, not tearing, just consuming. Like it felt it didn't need to rush. The creature leaned around the stump slowly, deliberately, like it knew I was there the entire time. I didn't scream, I didn't run, and why not? I backed away, slow, quiet, every instinct in my body screaming, don't turn your back on it. I went back to the bridge and whisper yelled to my cousin, we need to get back to the car now. She didn't understand at first. I said it again and again, my voice shaking harder each time until she finally heard the panic in it. We got in the car and drove off. A few hundred feet down the road, our headlights passed over a mangled deer lying in the ditch. Its body looked shredded, like something massive had torn into it. People would say a bear did it, but I didn't believe that for a second. My family always believed we're sensitive. We notice things other people don't. And after that night, things started happening. Lights flickering for no reason, a flag in my room lifting upward like something invisible picked it up. Objects sliding across counters when no one was near them. And the worst part, feeling something grab my foot when I'd let it hang off the bed. Not once, more than once. Once from under my own bed, once from under my cousin's when I was sleeping on a beanbag beside it. Oh no, it's following you? It's following you. The day my grandpa passed, I saw it again that night. The same presence, the same overwhelming sense of dread. So strong it felt like pressure on my chest, and I didn't even think. I just started praying out loud over and over. Whatever it was, I knew it wanted to hurt me. I still do. I think my cousin might have taken something from Bone Bridge that night, something that didn't belong to us, and ever since then, it feels like whatever lives out there knows who we are, like it's tracking us. I know how this sounds. I know people will say it's fake, but weeks later, I still get anxious thinking about it. Because some things don't need to chase you. They just need you to know they're still there.
She was kept in a box under a bed for 23 hours a day and was only let out to be mistreated in the most inhumane way possible. And this went on for 7 years. And when you hear how she escaped, I fully believe your jaw is going to be on the floor right along with me. So on May 19th, 1977, a 20-year-old girl named Colleen is just standing on the side of the road trying to catch a ride so that she can visit her friend who lives about 100 miles away. She's just out there hoping that some nice person is going to pull over and offer to take her, which back in the 70s was actually pretty normal. People hitchhiked all the time. It wasn't seen as this crazy dangerous thing that we think of it now. And that's when this car pulls to the side of the road, and inside is a young couple, probably around Colleen's age, and they have a little baby sitting in the back seat. And honestly, the whole thing looked completely harmless, like the most normal family car you've probably ever seen. The guy introduces himself as Cameron and the woman is Janine, and Cameron just says, hey, we can definitely take you wherever you need to go, no problem at all. And Colleen looks at this couple and their baby and she thinks, okay, yeah, I mean, these people look totally fine. So she gets in the car. Now, as they're driving, Colleen starts to notice something that makes her a little bit uncomfortable. And that's the fact that Cameron keeps looking at her in the rearview mirror. And it's really starting to creep her out a little bit. But she just talks herself out of it. She's like, okay, I'm probably just getting a little bit paranoid. They have a baby in the car. They're being so nice. I need to stop overthinking everything. So they stop at a gas station after a while, and Colleen gets out to use the bathroom. While she's sitting in that bathroom stall, something inside of her just starts going off like an alarm. And not a small, quiet alarm. I mean a really strong, overwhelming sensation in her gut that is basically screaming at her to not get in that car, to leave right now, to not go back to those people. And I think most of us have had a gut feeling before, but this sounds like it was on a completely different different level. Like her whole body was trying to warn her. But Colleen talks herself out of it again because she's thinking about the fact that this couple has been nothing but kind to her. They have a baby with them and they're offering to drive her all the way to her friend's house for free. So instead of being rude or dramatic over a feeling that she can't even explain, she decides to go back into the car anyways. And when she opens the door to get back in, she immediately notices something that was not there before. It's this big wooden box sitting right there in the back seat next to where she's about to sit. And Colleen is just staring at it and she's like, okay, that's weird. Where did that come from? But again, she doesn't say anything. She just thinks it's a little off and decides to let it go and mind her business. So they continue driving for another 20 minutes or so when Cameron turns around and looks at Colleen and says, hey, we actually heard that there are some really cool ice caves nearby. Do you mind if we make a quick stop to check them out? And Colleen says, yeah, sure, of course, because what else is she gonna say? These people are doing her a favor by driving her around, so she's not really in a position to start making demands. So Cameron takes an exit off the highway and starts driving down this really long dirt road that goes deeper and deeper into the woods until there are literally just trees everywhere in every direction and no other cars, no buildings, nothing. And then the car stops and Cameron, Janine, and the baby, they all get out and they just leave Colleen sitting inside of the car by herself. And Colleen is looking around through the windows and she's thinking, okay, there are definitely no ice caves around here, so what is going on? And before she could even finish that thought, Cameron yanks the back door open, jumps in, and puts a knife right up against Colleen's throat. And he looks at her dead in the eyes and says, you are going to do exactly what I say. And that is the moment that Colleen realizes that gut feeling that she ignored in the bathroom was right about everything. Cameron forces her to lie down flat in the back seat, and this is when that big wooden box from earlier suddenly makes a lot of horrible sense. Because Cameron had built it specifically for this moment. It's basically a soundproof box lined with carpet inside of it so that when he puts it over someone's head, no matter how loud they scream, nobody can hear a single thing from the outside. So now Colleen is lying down in the back of this car with a carpet-filled box locked over her head, completely unable to see or hear anything, with her wrists tied together, questioning if she's about to be ended. And that's when Janine and the baby get back into the car, completely calm, like nothing just happened. And then they just drive home. They wait until it gets dark outside so that none of the neighbors can see them. And then Cameron takes Colleen out of the car and leads her inside of the house with a blindfold on her eyes now. And he takes her straight down into his basement. And what was waiting for her inside of that basement is honestly what makes this case one of the most disturbing things I have researched, because Cameron has not built this overnight. He had been planning and building and preparing this space for a long time, specifically for this. Once Colleen is inside the basement, Cameron tells her to step onto this box and to raise her arms above her head towards the ceiling. And when he does this, he snaps handcuffs around her wrists and locks them to a beam above her so that her arms are stretched up and she can barely move. And then he cuts off all of her clothes so that she's completely exposed. And I'm not gonna go into every single detail here because this video would get taken down. But just know that what Cameron did to her in that basement was one of the most cruelest, dehumanizing things that one person could do to another. And while all of this is happening, Janine is right there in the house too, and she isn't stopping any of it. She isn't calling for help. If anything, she actually joined in on it. And that is something that this case really forces you to sit with, because Colleen was not just failed by one person that night, she was failed by two. After Cameron is done, he takes Colleen, who at this point is exhausted and in pain and completely disoriented, and he lays her down inside of another box. This one is shaped more like a coffin, and then he puts the carpet-filled box back on top of her head and locks it. And then he chains her wrists to the sides of the coffin box so that she genuinely cannot even move, not a single inch. And before he walks away, he leans down to her ear and says one of the most terrifying things to her. Go ahead and scream and I will cut your vocal cords. I've done it before. I don't mind doing it again. And then he just leaves her there, and that became Colleen's life. 23 hours out of every single day, she was locked inside of that box in complete darkness, unable to move her arms, unable to breathe. It was like constant suffocation, just breathing in carpet fibers and dust and lying there in this tiny enclosed space with a box over her head. And she was only let out for 1 hour a day. That was it. And it wasn't even for good reason. It was because Cameron got bored and wanted to her a little more. And this went on for months. Now in January of 1978, so like 7 months later, Cameron decides that what he's been doing just isn't enough for him. And so he actually sits Colleen down and hands her a written contract, and he forces her to sign it. And what she is signing is basically an agreement saying that she belongs to him as a slave for the rest of his life. And because of everything that he had already put her through, because her mind had been so completely broken down by this point, she signs it. But here's the thing that makes this case so psychologically different from a lot of other cases. Cameron had also built this entire fake world inside of her head to make sure that she would never even think about escaping. He told her that she was being watched at all times by this huge and very powerful secret organization called the Company. And if she ever tried to run away or tell somebody what was happening, the Company would find her, and what they would do to her would be far worse than anything Cameron had done. And for the cherry on top, they would also go after her family too. And I know that sounds like something a person could just think their way out of, like, okay, obviously that's not real, just run. But you have to understand what months of isolation and psychological manipulation does to a human brain. Because by this point, Colleen believed in the Company the same way that she believed in anything else that was real in her life. Like, it was not a question if it was real. This was a fact to her. And now, after signing this contract, Colleen isn't even called Colleen anymore. She is called Kay. That is her only identity. And now she has to call Cameron Master. Eventually, Cameron decides to move the entire family to a mobile home in a place called Red Bluff, California. And they bring Colleen with them, obviously, and her new living situation is in a wooden box that Cameron built underneath the waterbed that he and Janine sleep in every single night. Now, over time, because Colleen is doing everything that she is told and never giving Cameron any sort of reason to punish her, he actually starts letting her do small things outside of the box. Like, she's allowed to go for a jog or do some yard work or help take care of the kids around the house. And this is the part of the story that I think is really hard for people to understand from the outside. Because here is Colleen outside with neighbors nearby with a phone inside of the house, and she does not run. She doesn't go asking for help or saying a single thing about what is happening to her. And people hear that and they think, why wouldn't you just go? But that's because people have never had the Company living inside of their heads for years. That fear was more real to Colleen than anything else around her, and Cameron made sure of that every single day. But then in 1981, which is 4 years after the day that she got inside of that car, Cameron does something that seems so completely unbelievable given everything. He lets Colleen go and visit her family by herself. No Cameron, no supervision, just Colleen getting into a car and driving to see her family alone. And she goes and she hugs them, she sits with them, and she doesn't say anything. Her family could tell that something was really off with her. I mean, she was wearing homemade clothes, she had no money, she hadn't been in contact with them for years. But they were so scared that if they pushed her or made her feel cornered by asking her a whole bunch of questions, that she would just disappear again completely. So they stayed quiet and just tried to enjoy the fact that she was finally home. And then the next day, Colleen came back to visit again, but this time, Cameron came with her and introduced himself as her boyfriend. And that's when this photo was taken, him smiling like an absolute normal human being, and her family having no idea, none at all, that this man had been keeping their daughter in a box under his bed for 4 years. After that visit, Cameron decided, wait, I've given Colleen a little too much freedom, and just like that, she went right back underneath that waterbed inside of that box for 23 hours a day, and this time it stayed that way for another 3 more years. It wasn't until 1983 that Colleen was allowed to exist in the real world again. She gets reintroduced to the neighbors, and she's even allowed to get a job cleaning rooms at a local motel. Now for what? I don't know. Maybe bills were tight or something, but after years in a box, that was probably like stepping onto another planet. But then Cameron does something that ends up being the thing that unravels all of it. He tells Janine that he wants Colleen to become his second wife, and this causes something in Janine to break. Now hold on though, because I want to be really clear about something. Janine is not the hero in this story. She participated in what happened to Colleen and watched it happen for years and years, but what came out later is that Janine had also been a victim of Cameron in her way. He had actually been manipulating and tormenting her since the very beginning of their relationship, and she had survived it the only way that she knew how, which was to just shut down the part of her brain that was aware of what was happening around her and keep going. But the second wife thing was just something that she could not shut off. Like, that's where she drew the line. My guess is that she just wanted that part of their relationship to be sacred. So in August of 1984, Janine goes to Colleen privately and tells her the truth, that the company is not real, that Cameron made the whole thing up, that there is nobody watching her, that there never was. Now, what happens next is a bit shocking. Colleen doesn't call 911. She doesn't go to the nearest police station. She doesn't immediately go and tell the world what happened to her. Instead, she walks to a bus station, picks up a payphone, and calls Cameron and tells him that she's leaving. Because all of the psychological brain rewiring that Cameron and Janine did to her, it didn't just disappear the second that she said the company was fake. She was still mentally attacked. And Cameron, this man who kept her under his bed for years and signed her life away to slavery, starts crying on the phone. And he's telling her, please, Colleen, please don't leave me. But my girl hangs up the phone, gets on the bus, and goes home. But I wouldn't even call it escaping yet, because for the next several months, she keeps calling him. But she did later explain that it was to give him a chance to come forward himself, partly because Janine did ask her to give him that chance. But he did not come forward. So 3 months later, Janine went to the police herself. Cameron Hooker was arrested, charged, and convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 104 years in prison. And Janine actually received immunity from prosecution in exchange for her cooperation with the case. Now, Colleen, who spent 7 years of her life being manipulated, all of the above, went on to rebuild her life completely. She got married, she had children, and she even started speaking publicly about what she went through so that other people can understand how something like this is even possible. I love y'all. Please be safe out there. Mwah. Group hug.
I'm Mexican, if you guys didn't know. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, and I want to talk about what's going on in Mexico right now because it feels like it just keeps going from bad to worse. Mexico is in pure chaos following the death of Nemesio Segura Cervantes, also referred to as El Mencho, the country's most wanted man, the top leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of Mexico's most dangerous and feared cartels. He's gone, and now everyone in his world and beyond is retaliating. Just picture this. You're on vacation in Puerto Vallarta. It's Sunday, February 22nd. You wake up at your beachfront hotel to what sounds like construction noises. You wake up, you look outside, smoke everywhere. Within minutes, hotel staff is knocking on your door. Stay inside, lock the doors, do not leave. Outside of your hotel, taxi cabs are being set on fire, businesses as well, gas stations, shooting and blockades on every street. The Mexican military present, trying to keep up with the cartel members fighting. Flights are canceled indefinitely. Schools have been suspended. American tourists and Mexican residents have been advised to shelter in place and do not move. It started in Jalisco, but it spread out to other states. Some reports stating that at least 8 other states have been affected. It is pure and utter chaos, leaving everyone wondering what in the world happened. About 180 miles away in the town of Tapalpa, Mexican special forces had just successfully ended the most powerful cartel leader in the Western Hemisphere. Just months before the 2026 World Cup, by the way, which only adds a layer of havoc to the entire situation, the US had issued a $15 million reward for any information leading to El Mencho's whereabouts, Mexico also offering around the same amount. And when they got him, the cartel unleashed absolute disaster. To understand what happened, you need to know who El Mencho was. He was born in 1966 in the state of Michoacan, and in the 1980s, he illegally crossed to California looking for a better life. Instead, he began selling. In California, he was arrested a few times. He served nearly 3 years in prison. Then he was sent back to Mexico. And back in Jalisco, surprisingly enough, shockingly enough, he became a police officer. But that path wasn't going to be the one for him for too long, because then he was eventually recruited by a cartel leader who pretty much took him underneath his wing. El Mencho learned the business quickly, and very quickly people in that world began knowing his name, earning him a reputation as a cruel, calculated, ruthless man. When the cartel group that he originally joined fell apart, for one reason or the other, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel came to be, and El Mencho was the big bad boss. He seized the opportunity and he took control. For years, he was almost like a ghost to authorities. His name appeared time and time again on intelligence reports, military operations, but nobody knew exactly where or how to find him. Under his leadership, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel went from being a small local group to controlling more than half of Mexico. He was selling a lot of product, different kinds, to everyone, shipping product not only to the States but also to Europe and Asia. The cartel grew tremendously in size, buying out people to be on their side and using brutal violence. But El Mencho wanted even more power, so what did he do? He started legitimate businesses in cattle ranching, farming, and construction, all fronts to only hide his billions worth of illegal money. Another terrifying thing is that what he was doing, what he was running, was kind of like a family business. El Mencho's wife, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, was arrested in 2021 and identified as the person behind running the cartel's finances. She was released from prison in February of 2025, just days before El Mencho's capture. His son, Ruben Osugara Gonzalez, nicknamed El Menchito, was sentenced to life in prison by a U.S. court in March of 2025 for weapon charges, and his daughter had also served a 30-month jail sentence in the States for financial crimes. Even El Mencho's son-in-law, Cristian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, was a top cartel leader. He allegedly kidnapped 2 Mexican Navy members back in 2021 to pressure authorities to release El Mencho's wife. Then he decided to disappear, faked his own passing, and fled to California, where he lived underneath a fake name until his arrest in November of 2024. And how was El Mencho able to avoid capture for so long, you may be wondering? Well, his network of people who were willing to protect him was and is massive. Not only members of the cartel who would do absolutely anything for him, but even authorities like police officers, members of the military. The cartel bought out so many people to benefit them to be able to operate in the way that they wanted to. He had people across the country willing to keep him hidden anywhere that he went. The amount of loyalty that he had from so many people is incomprehensible. But then when someone from his circle, described to be a romantic partner who was already underneath surveillance by military intelligence agents, went to go see him in one of his hideout areas, and that is how the Mexican army was informed of his whereabouts. Based on the state of the house that they found him in, they believed that he had been there, or people had been there, for at least a few weeks. Authorities discovered that El Mencho remained at that location surrounded by security detail, and the operation to capture him was planned on that same day, February 21st. Special forces moved in, backed by Air Force helicopters and the National Guard, but of course it wasn't going to be easy because the cartel fought back hard. They had armored vehicles, heavy weapons, and even rocket launchers that could take down aircraft, and that they did. 8 cartel members didn't make it out. 3 more, including El Mencho, were wounded and passed while being flown to Mexico City. It was over, or so they thought. Because within hours, Mexico erupted, cartel members hijacking buses, cargo trucks, and cars. They set them on fire, used them to block highways. Over 250 roadblocks were reported. In Puerto Vallarta, the beach paradise turned into a war zone. Video showed thick black smoke rising over the hotels. People were in full panic mode. There's videos online even of the airports. They look so scary. Airlines were scrambling. Delta, United, American, Southwest, and Air Canada all canceled flights to and from Puerto Vallarta in Guadalajara. Popular tourist destinations like Cancun, Tijuana, Mazatlan, they were also experiencing similar things. A Texas resident told reporters that he was on one of the last planes out of Puerto Vallarta. The captain opened the doors and let about 80 additional people on board, far beyond capacity, in a desperate attempt to get them to safety. Governor Pablo Lemus Navarro activated Code Red, the state's highest emergency protocol. He issued urgent warnings, quote, "We recommend not traveling on roads. The violent incidents have spread to at least 5 federal entities. The blockades have shifted to territorial boundaries," end quote. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico also issued urgent warnings. Canada did as well. And by Monday, according to various reports, the number of total casualties were 25 National Guard members, 30 suspected cartel members in Jalisco, an additional 4 in Michoacan, 1 prison guard, 1 Jalisco State Prosecutor's Office agent, 1 unidentified civilian, El Mencho, and 2 of his bodyguards. And a really, really scary thing is that even though they got El Mencho, 100%, there are so many people in line to replace him. The Mexican president just announced that as of yesterday, February 24th, the situation began to stabilize. However, based on the things that I'm seeing on social media, I don't really know what stable is supposed to mean. And talking about things being stable, an anthropologist who studies violence in Mexico has spoken on the matter, saying, quote, "The government has tended to equate crime statistics with peace. The homicide rate goes down. That means there's peace. That's not actually true," he explained. "There are plenty of situations where the cartel has had a huge amount of local power and there's not a lot of homicides or disappearances because they don't need to do them. In other words, he's saying calm does not mean control. It means that the cartel is so powerful that they don't feel the need to cause chaos to maintain their power, their dominance. El Mencho's cartel was a key supplier, but him being gone unfortunately will not stop the flow, which is horrific. Someone else will take over because the money is too big, the demand is too high. But even though his absence will not stop anything for the families who have lost loved ones to what he was selling, for the communities who have suffered from fighting against the cartel, for the Mexican soldiers who were willing to risk their lives, at the very least, it's something. Guadalajara is set to host 4 FIFA World Cup matches in June of this year, so just months away. They expect around 3 million visitors, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Mitchell and I, my fiance, we're actually considering going to Mexico for the World Cup as well. It's so sad to see. I know that some of you guys that watch my videos either live in Mexico or have close family members that do, so please let me know if I got anything wrong. Please let me know if I missed anything, and please know that my heart is with you. That's all from me today. Let me know your thoughts on this. Yeah, hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.